Hello everybody, it's your friend Philtastic Phil here. I'm back with part 2 of my X-Men review video, taking a look at the X-Men titles post Swords of X. If you haven't checked out part 1 yet, I encourage you to do so. I'm going to go ahead and put a link right down there in the description of this video. And as always, I encourage you to give this a like, share the content, subscribe to this channel, of course, if you haven't already for some reason. And if you agree or disagree with anything I'm saying in this video, go ahead and leave me a comment. As always, please remember, I've got spoilers for each and every one of these titles here, so if you're meaning to read these and you just haven't gotten around to it yet, you might want to put this video on pause, read those comics, then come back to this. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Next up, I have X-Men issues 16, 17, and 18. This is the flagship title for the X-Men, and as it should be. If you've read any of Hickman's material in the past, you know that it could be a little all over the place, but he's slowly working towards a finish. Each issue here has a different artist, and I think that kind of suits it because it has a different feel to it. The artist in this first issue I'm looking at, number 16, is Phil Noto, one of my favorites. And I thought this was unusual that this was one of the first titles that came out after the Swords of X crossover amongst all the X titles. But it's also the only title I feel that really brought up the Krakoa and Arakko dynamic here. All the other ones I felt like kind of went back to business as usual. I mean, that being said, it sets up some interesting things for the dichotomy between the two islands. Number 17, true to Hickman's form, has nothing to do with 16. At first, I thought maybe this was a flashback. You could see the older style of drawing. This is drawn by Brett Booth, who really has captured that 90s style. And I always thought it was kind of strange that it looks like Cyclops and Jean Grey in here are in their 90s or 80s X Factor uniforms, but you can see Storm is in her modern day costume. And this is a story that takes place mostly in space. There's Gladiator, Hickman's creation from his Avengers run. She's Cannonball's wife, if I'm not mistaken. And really, it looks like something that came right out of the 90s. It's a perfectly serviceable issue. Again, it kind of feels out of place in the greater scheme of things, but knowing Hickman, he's working towards an end. The final issue, 18, again, total change and another new artist. This is a story that takes place in the Vault with three characters: Cinch, Wolverine, that's the X-23 Wolverine, and Darwin, who I'm glad to see back in the X-Men books. I mean, again, overall, this is a pretty good issue. This is almost more of like a sci-fi type of issue. You have a team of 3 X-Men going into the Vault and fighting these characters, the children of the Vault. The fight itself, I have to say, is kind of anticlimactic. I don't really get the sense that the 3 X-Men had any kind of issue with it. The narration is done through the eyes of Cinch, who you may remember from the Generation X series in the 90s. Again, good story. Kind of heavy towards the end with the Murder No Man directive as one of the Krakoan rules. And I'm curious to see, of course, where they take this story. If you are at all interested in reading the X-Men titles, and let's face it, you're watching a video about X-Men stories, so I think you are, then this book, if it's not already on your pulls, is a must. Not only is this the flagship title for this book, it's kind of the Rosetta Stone in that respect. You're not going to understand where Hickman's going or where he's kind of working towards unless you're reading this title. That being said, a new creative team and a new X-Men team will be taking over the next volume of this book, which starts shortly after the Hellfire Gala event. Okay, next up is Children of the Atom, number 1. Written by Vita Ayala and drawn by Bernard Chang. The jury's still out on me for this one. In general, I like what they're doing. I think so. It's just we don't know who these characters are. We don't know what they're doing, what their purpose is. But that, in this case, kind of adds to it. This I kind of liked, where they had the first meeting of some of the lesser X-Men, like you've got Pixie, Magma, and Maggot. I wouldn't have thought to include Maggot. Pixie is okay with me. Magma, she's there, she's not, but I don't know. I thought Maggot was just kind of more like a fan service thing. Anyway, what really makes the issue interesting for me, and why I'm going to continue to check it out, I'm just kind of fast forwarding to the very end, or after turning down Pixie's invitation to go to Krakoa, they decide to try to walk through the gate on their own. They're kind of like running away, so to speak, only to find they can't do it. So what does that mean? That means that they are not mutants. So who are these kids? Are they cosplayers? Are they just wannabes? Are they kids hyped up on MGH, that mutant growth hormone for story? I think they did that in the early 2000s. It's simply too early to tell whether I'll be keeping Children of the Atom in my polls yet or not. Although the premise of humans pretending to be mutants does sound interesting, the characters in the story, to be honest with you, at least in this first issue, just were not enough to resonate with me or to want me to run back for more. That being said, I'll be checking out at least the next 2 issues and making my decision from there. Okay, next up we've got X-Force issues 15, 16, 17, and 18. X-Force, I do have to say I like how they're tying in Omega Red with this kind of future mission that they're working on. The artwork in here is phenomenal. In issues 15, 16, and 17, Joshua Cassara doing the work. And if you could look at these details here, very painterly, very well done. I really, really like it. This is another book where it kind of makes Beast out to be a dick. You know, he's kind of really, really screwing with a lot of things to Colossus's detriment, it looks like at the beginning. They have this kind of under the sea, under the ocean kind of story, which is serviceable. Why isn't this oceanic issue or this oceanic problem showing up all around the island and all the X titles? You know, it's not just their problem. It does kind of hop around a little bit as well. Again, Cassara's artwork is great. I think it's great also they tied in Dr. Reyes. This page, in my opinion, is the best one of this issue. This Wolverine staring eye to eye, quite literally, with this giant sea creature. Again, the problem I have, though, is if this sea creature is attacking the island, why aren't we seeing this in the other X titles? 17 and 18 take on a totally different tone. Cassara's doing the art on 17. It's a Kid Omega-centric story. I really think that the story here shines not only in these action moments, but in these moments when they're really just kind of focusing on one character. Again, this gave me a whole different appreciation for Kid Omega in general. Issue 18, you've got a different artist on. And it's good. It's an older style. Sage, to be honest with you, is a little boxy for my taste, but it keeps the story going. I'm definitely interested in seeing where this particular story goes with Kid Omega and with Beast just being a jerk. Just like in the prior volumes of X-Force, this volume is more action-heavy than the other X-Men titles. And don't get me wrong, that's not a bad thing at all. That being said, I do wish there was a little bit more connectivity with this title in relation to the other X-Men titles. At times, I almost feel like these characters are on a totally separate island. For example, post-Swords of X, we're seeing that the islands of Krakoa and Arakko cannot naturally form together, at least as the X-Men and the inhabitants of Arakko would have hoped for. Given that Black Tom Cassidy, who's a nature-based character now, is a big part of this X-Force team, I really feel like this is a missed opportunity to really connect that to this bigger issue. That being said, I do like how the writer Benjamin Percy, who also writes Wolverine, has incorporated Omega Red into this title. In fact, I think this is the most interesting the character has ever been. With this title, again, X-Force, you get what you're paying for. You get action. You get a good story. You're not going to get these big sweeping epics that you may have seen in other X-Men stories, but you do get something that's pretty solid. So it is staying in my pulls, at least for the foreseeable future. We'll see how it shakes out after the Hellfire Gala. Okay, and now I have Excalibur's issues 16, 17, and 18. Excalibur in a whole, to be honest with you, has not been a great series in my opinion. It's been a missed opportunity. Jubilee is just kind of there. I don't really feel like they make good use of Gambit and Rogue. Really, I feel like most of the characters who are not Braddocks, Betsy and her brother, and Morgan and Jamie, and even her niece, anybody who's not one of the Braddocks, I felt like kind of suffers overall in this title. It did have a couple great issues, I think, during X of Swords. X of Swords really kind of turned out to be, in my opinion, an Excalibur-centric title, but all in all, this one is on kind of shaky ground for me. I'll say this, issue 17 is, in my opinion, the best that the series has been. Only you see Betsy in this kind of alternate world, and I have to say, this is when it's strongest, when she's in this alternate world where her and Warren were still kind of together. All in all, Excalibur is, I think, not a great series. There's a lot going on, but I really feel like these other characters are kind of just not represented well. You know, I do appreciate the breathing room that the title has been given since Psylocke, or not Psylocke, sorry, since Captain Britain, again, Betsy Braddock, has been on another world or in another dimension, but it's a tough one. And it's hard because these are all characters I really like. I really think that Kelly Thompson's version of the Rogue and Gambit, her series Mr. and Mrs. X, was great. And to go from there to here is just so disheartening. The artwork, I have to say, I really, really enjoy, though. Let me see, who's the artist in this? And this writer, Teenie Howard, she's the same one doing Sword. Marcus Tell, I'm not familiar with him, but good job with the artwork. It kind of reminds me of Joe Matarrita, back from the Age of Apocalypse days, but not as cartoony. It's very clean style. I'm hanging in, but I'm hanging in by a thread. I'm not going to lie to you. Overall, if you have to skip a title, I really think Excalibur is the one to skip. Fortunately, since this volume of Excalibur launched, it's been nothing but a disappointment. It's a real heartbreaker considering you've got these great characters that everybody enjoys. Rogue, Gambit, Jubilee, Betsy Braddock. But they're really just not being used in the best way. The title did shine during the Ten of Swords event. I especially liked the interaction that Jamie Braddock had with Mr. Sinister. It kind of gave it a nice little connectivity between Hellions. And issue 17 actually was a pretty good issue. But barring a drastic change to this title and the status quo, I can't really see keeping it in my pulls past the Hellfire Gala. I do know that Rogue will be part of the next iteration of the X-Men team coming up in the next volume. Maybe that'll do something to this title, maybe not. But I'm really not hopeful at this point. Thank you again for checking out my video. I do appreciate you stopping in. I hope that you liked it. If you did, please let me know by giving me a like, commenting, or sharing this video. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and subscribe to this video. Thanks again for watching. Peace, love, and comics.